Hi lovelies! So as some of you already know, and maybe some of you don't, I am actually 32 weeks pregnant and due December 31st. And it's really funny, since announcing my pregnancy, the question I have been asked the most in the comment section is actually what has been my most intense pregnancy craving to date. And while I have loved ice cream, chocolate, chicken parmesan has been high up there, the one thing that this baby has wanted more than anything else is lasagna. So today, I thought in honor of this baby's craving and my desire to have lasagna, I would show you my classic meat lasagna. I was gonna say 3 delicious ways, but I'm actually only showing it 1 delicious way because it is such a big effort. I hope that's okay. Now, if you're looking for some quick and easy ways to get your lasagna on, I have a great video for that, 3 delicious lasagna hacks. I will link it in the description box below. This is not that. This is full-on classic lasagna with an amazing Bolognese sauce, a classic Bechamel sauce, and then put all together and baked in the oven. It's a bit of a labor of love, but trust me, when you taste it, you will understand why it is worth all of the effort. We're going to get started by mixing up our classic Bolognese sauce. I have got a nice big pot heating up on the stove. To that, I'm going to add a little bit of oil. Once our oil is heated up, we can go ahead and add our classic mirepoix ingredients. So that means an onion is headed into the pan, some celery goes in, and some carrot. It's really important that you finely dice your veggies in this recipe. You want them to be teeny tiny bites and almost to fall apart by the time they're done cooking. I'm going to cook those veggies for between 3 and 4 minutes, just until that celery becomes bright green and my onion turns soft and translucent. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add a clove of minced garlic to this. I'll let that cook for another 30 seconds or so. And at this point, it is time to add our meat to the pot. Sometimes in a Bolognese, you can use a combination of beef and pork. I prefer going all beef, but it's really up to you. Once our ground beef is in the pan, it is time for our workout, which is how we are going to justify eating this entire tray of lasagna. And the workout consists of just breaking your beef into little bits like so. While that beef is browning away, it's a good time to season things up with a little salt and pepper. Once my beef is fully cooked, I'm going to go ahead and stir in a little bit of tomato paste, which has a really wonderful concentrated flavor. Once my tomato paste is nice and well incorporated, I'm going to add my liquids. Now, traditionally in a Bolognese, I'll use a little white wine or a little red wine, but today I'm going to skip the wine altogether. So we're gonna go ahead and add our milk to this, some crushed tomatoes, and some chicken broth. I know it's gonna seem a little strange at first, but milk helps tenderize meat and also makes for a really creamy sort of finish. Once all that sauciness is happening, you'll want to give this a good stir and let it come to a boil. As soon as it reaches a boil, you can reduce your heat to medium and then just let it cook away. An hour, 2 hours, go ahead, read a book, watch some TV, and by the time you come back to it, it will be so filled with flavor, your taste buds almost won't believe it. Once your Bolognese is ready, you can set it aside while we get to work on the next step in our recipe, which is a classic Bechamel. Now, a lot of you, if you've made homemade lasagna before, you might have tried it with ricotta. And ricotta cheese is incredible, don't get me wrong. It's creamy, it's delicious. But a classic lasagna is actually typically made with a bechamel sauce. Not to say you can't continue to use ricotta in your lasagna if that's what you want to do, but I'm going to show you how easy a bechamel is to make, and maybe you'll feel inspired to try it during your next lasagna marathon. I'm going to melt some butter over medium heat until it's nice and bubbly and frothy. As you can see, I have not held back on the butter here. I'm using about 5 tablespoons. Once my butter is melted, I am going to whisk in some flour. It's important to keep whisking constantly so you don't burn this mixture, and I'm going to let it cook for between 2 or 3 minutes, just until it starts to take on a slightly golden color and smell a little nutty. And that's when you know it is time to add your milk. Now, there's 2 schools of thought when it comes to bechamel. Some people like to heat their milk up. Some people like to add their milk cold. It really is totally up to you. I'm adding my milk cold, and I promise you, it's still gonna work. While pouring your milk into the pot, it's always super important to keep whisking constantly to make sure everything gets nice and combined. Then we're going to let this mixture heat up for between 4 and 6 minutes until it becomes a nice thick sauce. Our last step is going to be adding just a little sprinkle of nutmeg. I know this sounds a little nutty. Sorry. I know this sounds a little nutty, but any purist will tell you a bechamel without nutmeg is simply not complete. You'll notice after 3 or 4 minutes, it starts to get this rich, velvety texture. As soon as it reaches that consistency, we're going to get it off the heat, and then we can get to work on assembling our lasagna. Finally, people. Now, as you can see, I've got my bolognese and my bechamel standing by. I've also got a nice deep baking dish. I have greased it really well with some butter because we don't want our lasagna sticking after all that hard work. In this case, I'm going to be using some fresh lasagna sheets. Now, these can usually be found in the deli section at your supermarket with the rest of the fresh pastas. I love fresh lasagna sheets because I find you get a much better texture. But if you can only find dry lasagna noodles at your supermarket, not to worry, just go ahead and cook them really quickly in a pot of boiling water, lay them out, and they will be ready to go. The first thing I'm going to do is start with a layer of my bechamel at the bottom of my pan. And then I'm going to nestle 2 of my pasta sheets in. As you can see, I've cut my pasta sheets into various shapes and sizes because I want to make sure I get a nice snug fit in my dish. Once your first sheet of pasta is down, it is time to load up on this amazing bolognese sauce. Don't be shy, people. This is where the magic actually happens. This is a great time to add some freshly grated Parmesan cheese. We want to make sure that that cheese is layered throughout. And then I'm going to top this with another layer of bechamel. Down goes another layer of pasta. I'm gonna top that with some bolognese. And this time, instead of using just parm, I'm also going to add in a little bit of mozzarella cheese. So I'm gonna alternate my mozzarella cheese every other layer. Once my mozzarella cheese is down, I'll continue to layer in that fashion until I reach the very top. I'm actually surprised Greg has not busted through that door already smelling this, because this is his favorite thing on earth. Once I've reached the very top, my final layer will be bolognese and bechamel, and then a whole heaping helping of mozzarella cheese. And then top it with even more freshly grated Parmesan. Now at this point, if you had any restraint at all, you could freeze this just as it is, throw some foil on it, get it into the freezer. But since we do not have any restraint, this is headed into the oven at 350 degrees for about 40 minutes. Also, this thing weighs more than my baby at this point. It's not even a joke. I know what you're thinking. You are ready to eat some lasagna. And I totally get that, guys. If you can believe it, when this lasagna comes out of the oven, you actually have to let it sit for at least another 15 to 20 minutes before cutting into it. I know. At this point, it's just torture. Are you ready for this? As you can see, I'm getting myself a very modest-sized piece. Ooh, ooh. That's a lot of layers of lasagna. I promise you, when you see each and every gorgeous layer, you'll totally understand why your wait was well worth it. I could not make this up if I tried. Greg, come here. He knew that the lasagna was coming out. No, bring me back to the lasagna. That is everything that is right with the world in a single bite. If you give it a try for yourself at home, you will not regret it. Every moment spent will be worthwhile. I hope you will give this tasty recipe a try, and if you do, be sure to tweet me, Instagram me, or Facebook me a photo, because I always love seeing your kitchen creations. This deliciousness is now up on my website and linked in the description box below if you want to take a look for it there. And finally, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe because there is lots more deliciousness where this came from. Although there won't be very much of this deliciousness left over when I'm done with it.